And I believe that we are live once again. Just gonna lower that a little bit here. Welcome everybody. Nice to have you all on board as usual for another show where I look really tired on this picture. So sorry guys, I'm a little tired, I'm a little off, but the show must go on, as they say. So I have no choice. So, hello everybody, welcome aboard. This is, actually, we'll talk about a little something. I took the decision to make this show on the Shortwave channel. And the reason I took the decision to do so was because it's the most popular radio channel I got. Why not put every radio thing in there? I thought, why not? You know, instead of separating everything. So I thought, let's do it on the Shortwave channel. I think it's going to be better anyway. And of course, today is a different show. It's not Shortwave. Today we're not going to have Shortwave tuning around or anything like that, unless some unusual thing pops up. Today we're going to have a satellite show. What's a satellite show? Well, there are a certain number of satellites in orbit around Earth that can be received quite easily, depending on the satellite. Some are easier than others, and we're going to talk about these different satellites. I think we're going to do a little recap of, you know, what are the satellites you can listen to, and what can you expect to listen to also. And you'll see how mad I am about sometimes listening to just tones or whatever, just for the sake of listening to satellites, and that's it. So, hey everybody, welcome aboard. And this show is a 1 hour later than usual because I had a little tech job at 1 p.m. today that was supposed to last about 45 minutes, and it lasted 2 hours and a half, which usually is the case because every time you want to do a tech job that's supposed to be quick, it never is quick. So it's nice to have everybody on board, and I because of the time to come back home and everything I had to do, I just pushed the start of the show at 2100. We'll have a show tomorrow, by the way, Shortwave show at 2000 hours UTC, and I can't believe that I'm drinking a beer after what I was out at the pub last night with some friends, which I should not have done. So cheers everybody. Okay. Hey there, Jerry Ball. Nick Hammondot from Romania. Jerry Ball is Welcome 38 from Prescott, Arizona. William Helms in Florida. Hope everything's well down there and that things are getting better after you guys been hit by Hurricane Irma. Bram P, hello there, nice to have you on board. VA2XE in Pointe Claire, nice to have you here. Monk 451, hey there. N2ASD, Patrick Manny, hello there. James Benson, nice to have you here from Newcastle upon Tyne, UK. Hey Jerry, nice to have you here. Yep, power is back on. PLF Radio in France, hello there. Bienvenue. Mapper in Moscow, Russia, with his old ICOM R5 in ready. Cool. And by the way, if any of you guys listen to whatever satellite, by the way, wherever you are, why not let us know. Dan805 from North Carolina, nice to have you here. Calvin, hey there, nice to have you here. And well, you will learn a little more today about what satellites you can tune and the frequencies, and a little bit of you know, what you need to, and it's surprisingly easy to receive satellites, especially some of the different the weather satellites, and there's a few amateur satellites that are not very difficult also. We have the Vaults from Latvia, hello there. Bobby Burgess from Louisiana, always nice to have you on board. We have Richard Cook, nice to have you here. And always nice to have everybody here. Where else do we have? What else do we have? Vensterbank, hello there. Nice to have you here. Steve P from Australia. Steve and Maxine, hello from Canada. The other way around. Nice to have all of you here. Philip Breaks from Brazil. Christoph K from Poland. SQ1JPU. Nice to have you here. GPU. Yeah. What else do we have? iMappers trying the International Space Station. Cool. James Benson says, "Will be nice to learn about satellite. Do you think I will be able to receive anything here in the UK?" Yep. We'll actually look at what are the tools that you can use to basically tune into satellites. And know where they are, because there's a lot of things you need to know, and we're gonna, I think, go a little bit through also the basics of satellite listening, because a lot of you are probably in the newbie zone for this, and it's going to be very, very nice to check it out. Dan and O5 says, "Speaking of VHF, UHF, got a dual band satellite installed yesterday. Haven't gotten to test it yet." Cool. Buster Brown, hello there, 97 Fahrenheit in Omaha, Nebraska. Here it's very hot. I mean, this weekend we're supposed to have 30 Celsius, almost 90 Fahrenheit, which is amazingly warm for this time of year. I mean, the normal temperature is about 17, 18 degrees Celsius at this time of year, and we're way, way, way warmer than we should. So really, it's going to be summer-like, and it's been summer-like for the past 2 weeks. It's just crazy. We were having a month of September that's just amazing, weather-wise. Anthony DiLorio, hello there. Good afternoon. Nice to have you here. And Anthony says he's heard some SSTV from the International Space Station a few months ago. This is very fun, absolutely. Slow scan TV from the ISS is always cool. Nick Amendout says, "I know this is not show related, but lots of fun removing a CPU glued to the heatsink." Oh man, that is always the fun part. Kevin Napalo, hello there, and WS2H from New Jersey, and Philip Briggs listening to the U.S. military satellites boom in south of Brazil almost daily with just a simple antenna. 255.550 is hearing, and yeah, that's one of the things that you can listen to also. There's these U.S. military satellites in the 200 megahertz range that kind of been you know, used by a lot of pirates lately. So pretty cool to have everybody here. So welcome aboard, everyone, and sorry if I look a little tired. So we'll start and put it out of the way immediately, so that we won't have to talk about it until pretty much the end of the show. If you guys want to help me out in any way, it's always, you know, your donations have been amazing in helping me continue what I do here. It's something that's really, really important. It really helps me, you know, complete the crappy AdSense that I get from YouTube. So if anybody wants to help me out, please do so at the paypal.me/shortwave. So the PayPal is cool because if you don't have a credit card, doesn't matter. You just, you know, put your bank account there, and by creating a PayPal account, it's kind of cool because you can do some online shopping of, you know, sorts also. Also, patreon.com/radio and computers. There you can set it up so that you can give me a little something once or every month. I've got 12 patrons right now giving me a little something every month. And so you can join a host. Just be careful how you set it up because it's very tricky. I got to say that Patreon, a few people got a little, you know, kind of didn't work out exactly like they wanted. So I kind of tend to say, well, use PayPal. It's almost better like that, I think. And Patreon also takes a lot of fees. They typically take like a 5% fee for them. There's the transfer fee to PayPal. There's at the end, it's like even sometimes I look at it and I say, yeah, there's kind of a lot of fees every time you take money. I understand. I mean, it's their job. That's what they do. But still, PayPal is kind of simpler and fees are lower also. John Drago, nice to have you here. W8FAA, nice to have you here, John. C. Johnson, hello there. Nice to have you on board as usual. And so we're going to check that out. M. Blair, hey there. And nice to have everybody here. Hope you are well also. It's always nice to have everybody here, by the way. So I'm going to look at the list. Okay, we're going to first do the like they say, first things first. What do you use if you want to listen to satellites, radio satellites? There's a lot of things that there's a lot of satellites that you can listen to in orbit. Now, as for the equipment itself, you don't need a fancy big radio like this, even though if that's what I use, you don't need a fancy radio like that necessarily. A basic scanner. If you got a scanner lying around, there are some signals you can hear with a scanner. So you just, have to know the frequencies where they are. You can also use, if it's well, you got a good enough antenna and well tweaked. I've seen tons of posts and videos on YouTube about people receiving satellites on the little SDRs that are cheap SDRs, these little dongles. So I don't know, I don't have one here to show you guys, but I usually have one lying around somewhere, but I don't see it right now. So anyways, this is something that is, of course, easy for, very cheap. You can actually tune in, like Ichalikov, welcome aboard, by the way, says a $20 SDR will do the job also. So that's the first thing. You don't really need that much equipment, and it's kind of cool. But of course, depending on what you've got, you might actually need, a little something that has maybe upper or lower sideband, single sideband, for certain types of signals, like certain amateur radio satellites, for example. There's a few of these. And by the way, I've just noticed that I've not checked into the IRC chat room. Sorry guys, I always forget about that one. And I'm coming, I'm going to be there in not very long. So if you've got an old scanner laying around, if you've got, if you don't have anything but you want to try it out, you can, of course, take a little cheap $10, $20 dongle. And Cholikov says he's receiving them with TV rabbit ears, and so it seems to work. Mad Radio DXer, welcome aboard, and nice to have you here. So there are some specific frequency ranges for satellites, and because they're not like popping up everywhere. You also got to know what satellites are actually transmitting. The web is a great resource for that, and there's also a very, very cool list of this that is available. SG2 East Nebraska, nice to have you here, as usual. Sunny and 97 Fahrenheit. So pretty cool to have all of you here. So cheers, everybody. I've got Don de Dieu, which is a gift from God. Nice to have everybody on board. Okay, so the receiver doesn't have to be that complex. You don't have to spend a lot of money on receivers. And one of the things after that is, of course, the antenna. And that probably is a very important part of satellite reception. The antenna that you're going to use. So what type of antenna? Well, you know what? Some of the satellites are so strong that even if you use, you know, just the little rubber ducky antenna that comes with scanners, sometimes you know, like, you know, NOAA weather satellites, you'll receive them with this for sure. Of course, if you get a better antenna, you know, like getting maybe a telescopic wideband antenna like this, could be a good idea, because you'll have the possibility to hear maybe a little more. And of course, depending on what you have as equipment, an outdoor antenna also. Like for example, on this right now, got my new disc cone up and running. It's not as high as I wanted to put it though. I need to put it higher than that, because it barely, actually the lower part of the disc cone is, I believe, not totally above rooftop level, so it might not perform as well as it could. For a long time I've used, and it's still up, a mobile vertical VHF UHF antenna that I paid a surprising amount of 99 cents, and actually worked fantastically well. So, you know, it just shows you don't necessarily need a lot of equipment to actually have something working. So, you know, you start off with the basics of what you've got, and basically the thing that happens is that the less modes you have, because, you know, basic scanners don't have single sideband, for example, it will of course make some of the satellites impossible for you to listen to. So of course, having a, you know, a receiver like this one, for example, which is more advanced, that has a single sideband. Once again, these $20, you know, dongles are those $20 dongles, or $10 to $20 dongles, are great for that, because they do have, with the software, to find receiver with the software in the computer, they have single sideband capability, so it adds to the possibility also. C. Johnson, the TV dish, the old TV dish that is used for satellite TV, are often not well tuned, or, you know, proper for the type of frequencies we try to listen to on basically on the VHF UHF ranges that we actually listen to. And but I'm sure, you know, some people out there have modifications that you can do and help them maybe tune at the frequencies that you might want to use for satellites, for example. I don't know. There, you know, it's something that I've not really thought of much, but there must be a way to surely, you know, maybe repurpose the antennas for the frequencies that you might want. The interesting idea with these dishes are they're very directional, so it really is nice to gather as much signal as possible. But, you know, it's something I'll research a little bit, because it's kind of interesting. Can you repurpose, you know, a TV satellite dish for that? That could be interesting to see. Jeff KD5 QDO, hello there, nice to have you here. Michael Palmquist, nice to have you here, as usual. And today we are a little off subject of shortwave. We're in the satellites and the VHF UHF ranges, and so yeah, we're of course digressing a little bit. So one of the first things that I've just want to talk about briefly is, yes, my disc cone is up. Now it's very interesting because, okay, it might not be as high as it needs to be. It doesn't, I don't see that much of a difference in the signals yet between the disc cone and my vertical mobile. I haven't tried it on satellites yet, so tonight is going to be a test here of can we receive? Will I receive better the satellites? And we'll see anyways. So you've got equipment. Now you need to know a little more about what are the satellites you can listen to, what are the frequency ranges where you can actually listen to satellites. That's kind of important information. So there are a few ranges where satellites will, of course, happen, and we'll also find a little bit of information about how to find, you know, the frequencies and what apps. And by the way, we have apps that you can use for satellite tracking, some software for PC that will track satellites, because that's the other thing that you need to know is these satellites, the ones that you can hear easily, are low Earth orbit satellites, LEOs. We call them LEO because it's low Earth orbit. So typically these satellites, it's not like satellite TV. They're not really, you know, steady at the same space. It's not geosynchronous, you know, orbits. These satellites need to move and move fast in order not to fall back down on Earth. So they typically circle Earth about 90 to 120 minutes, depending on the height of the satellite in orbit. So you need to know when they are over you, because you can't hear them all the time. You'll hear them only when they do what we call a pass. So when they pass over your area, that's when you need to know when they're going to pass, and then what frequencies and how to tune it. Luis Arevalo, nice to have you here. 86 UP from Los Angeles. We have the Vaults that says, pretty sure parabolic antennas will be prohibitively large to work decently on solo frequencies, as gain of a dish raises with frequency going up. Yeah, that's what I think about, a little bit about the these dishes, and so I'm not sure they're you know, I'm pretty sure there are other things like there's a little comment here that I saw about, you know, discounts or helix antennas. It's surprisingly you know, easy to even build your own little antenna for satellite listening, if that's what you wish to do, to have the best gain possible. And of course, satellites are moving. That means if you've got a antenna that needs to be pointed towards a satellite, it has to move. You'll have to have a satellite, an antenna that can move. If you have a directional antenna, there's, of course, you know, like my vertical mobile was great. That is omnidirectional. A discount is pretty much omnidirectional. These are nice because you don't have to touch them. They'll receive the signal as the satellite's passing by. Ups and downs in strength. Of course, a directional antenna is better because you'll have more strength, but it's really interesting. 1990 Sunburned. Hello there, nice to have you here. Like Ichalekov says, talking about satellites that circle the Earth, dish antennas are mostly for fixed locations. There are some, you know, directional antennas with rotors that you can actually follow satellites if you want, but is an outdoor antenna better for catching satellites, or what are some tips for indoor antennas? Yeah, okay. You know, I've had some success with receiving satellites indoors, okay? Some of them are strong enough that indoors is a possibility. But honestly, a lot of satellites, you'll have so much better reception outdoors. You know, when I was actually using only a little portable scanner, Even though, yes, within the room inside I would hear some, if I'd go on the balcony outside, I'd hear them much stronger because there's, you know, no walls and no roof to kind of lower the signal strength. So it is better to have outdoor antennas. Some of the weaker ones, you know, some of this amateur satellites that have very weak signals, forget about getting it inside because the signal's already very weak. It technically doesn't really go very well inside. You'll have to go outside and try from a vantage point outside. If you use also your portable scanner, for example, or a little dongle with a little antenna, one of the things that is to know is that you'll have to move around. Since the satellites move, the signal changes and the polarization of the signal changes. So you sometimes have to move around with your radio or with the antenna. If you have a little antenna, you know, you'll have maybe to move it around. So for example, when I was using my portable scanner like this with this antenna, well, it's like you move around and you change the angle, and at some point you get some signal, and then you just try to follow as best possible to get the signal, because it's going to fade in and out while the satellite is moving. You got to understand also that even the satellite often has a directional pattern, and as it's moving, you're not always within the strongest part of the signal that it's sending down. So it all depends on what satellite you're listening to. And of course, some satellites from the sorry, the cat is looking at me with intent. So anyways, some satellites are more difficult to receive than others, and that's for sure. 1990 Sunbird, yes, there's a show tomorrow at 2000 hours UTC. We're going to talk about shortwave tomorrow. Tomorrow's subject will be the DX shows that you can listen on the shortwave bands. And so this is going to be tomorrow. So the DX shows, the mailbag shows, some of the interesting shows that you can listen to. Hey there, David Arden. Nice to have you here. KJ4CMY. What do we have here? Okay. Montreal DXer says, was surprised how many SATCOM pirates got outdoors using the whip antenna on the scanner. Also the fact that I can move the antenna at different direction with the satellite is moving. So that absolutely outside is a very different. You know, having a possibility of being outdoors in some way is much easier on the reception of satellites, for sure. Ethel Welsh, nice to have you here. Bullfrog89, hello there, nice to have you here. Says KD2CXU, checking in, excited for tonight's show. You've been decoding NOAA satellites recently with his RTL SDR and weather to image. I need to do that also. Actually, I've never. I will need to have that for first. I've never received a satellite yet using an RTL SDR, and I need to do that. Come on. Oh, both spit. Easy. Little guy banged his head. Oh, poor little kid. Banged his head on the table while coming up. Sorry, guys. Poor little guy. Look at that. Little Paul the cat. So he's jumping. He's jumped to get on my lap, and he banged his head on the border of the table. Poor guy. Oh man. So hey, sorry man. Hope he didn't get hurt. Poor little guy. So anyways, it's I just need to try that out. I've never received I've never received a satellite with the SDR dongle. So for sure, I will need to check that out, and I'm sure there's a lot of videos also to check that out. Radio cats are cool. So hey, he seems to be okay. Poor little kitty. And he's got this weird thing on his ear. I hope I don't have to bring him to the vet, because the vet costs a ton of money. But of course, for this little kitty, I'll do it. So anyways, of course, outdoors. And if it's a portable scanner you have with just, like a rubber duck, going outside, if, on your lawn, on the balcony, or whatever, is going to help you tremendously in getting a better signal. What are the frequency ranges that you'll hear? So, of course, a lot of guys in the chat have been mentioning the 200 megahertz, frequency ranges, where there's these military satellites around 250 megahertz. Basically, these are satellites that they're kind of pirates, and that have started using them and broadcasting them. Funny that I haven't been able to receive any of those here, and from what I hear with you guys, it seems to be really easy, and I'm amazed that I can't hear anything. So I'll have to check that out for sure, because I'm very, very, very curious about that. So there are some of these on the 250 megahertz range. Now, not all scanners, receivers receive that frequency range. Just that pretty much everyone will receive on scanners there's weather satellites, like the NOAA weather satellites. There's, of course, Orbcom satellites. These are on 137 megahertz, 136, 137 megahertz. And you'll have also amateurs, where you can get frequencies of satellites and know, of course, how to know when they pass over your head. Yes, I need to get. That was what I was thinking. Mad Radio DX are getting some pet insurance. So I think that's going to be better. And what I feed him, well, he's really, he likes to eat a lot. I can tell you that. So I got to be careful, because he just wants to eat all the time. So yeah, it's possible. Here I'm looking at the feed. I could see when people lose the feed a little bit, because I see the numbers go down. But here everything is okay on my side, so it doesn't seem to be me. It's a possibility that it's... oh, interesting. I just noticed something here. I just got a disconnect on the IRC. So when that happens, it means I just lost the internet for like a microsecond here. So sorry guys about that. Sorry about that. It's kind of weird. It seems as if I lost the internet, like just for a quick second. Huh. So anyways, we are back. Hopefully okay. Everything looks okay here. Jay Watterson 69, hello there. Nice to have you here. And here we go. I'm going to help you go down so you don't bang your head anywhere. Here we go. So nice to have everybody here. Okay, so how do you track satellites? That's the other question, because a lot of people will say, yeah, well, how do I track satellites? How the hell do I know when they pass over my head? There are a few things you can do. There are some tracking on the internet. So there's Google has a satellite tracking. If you type a satellite name and track next to it, you'll see that Google will have a satellite tracking via the web. you can go to a website called Heavens Above, and I'll share that here. Heavens Above is a great website. Heavens Above, for information about satellites that will pass over your head. So they have all sorts of tracking, and some of them are the radio satellites that you can track. So Heavens Above is a great website. Here you go. Also, n2yo.com, absolutely, is another great one. So n2yo.com. Let's share this also. Here we go. This is another website that is very useful for tracking online. Also, for weather satellite information, for all sorts of satellite information. So for, first of all, amateur radio. There's AMSAT. AMSAT is the dedicated amateur radio satellite group. They have lots of information about, of course, amateur radio satellites. But one particular website that I love, and that is just amazing, and it keeps up to date all the time, is a Japanese amateur radio operator that operates this. And I'll just post here all satellite frequency lists, and they are in different formats. And this guy is fantastic because he maintains one of the best lists of satellites, amateur satellites, and he highlights the ones that are still active, because one of the biggest problems with amateur satellites is the fact that there's a lot. Well, I don't know if there's somebody there. I'm just gonna, no, I think it's okay. Okay, because the cat was, oh, I closed the door. I think it's gonna be okay. Did I close the door? Well, no, I kept it. Yeah. Sometimes we got a cat that comes and like steals Paul's food, and he was kind of looking at me like in a weird way. So, anyways, the Japanese website there is great because he has a full list of amateur satellites, their frequencies, and he highlights the ones that have been active. And this list is updated every day. So the guy makes sure that that you know which satellites are active with all the information he gets from different amateur operators, and also because it's updated all the time, you know which satellites are working, which are not, and that's pretty cool. Sometimes amateur satellites work only, you know, half of the satellites working certain modes and not others. So that's a great list. It's one of my favorite lists. Robert Sutton, hello there. So these are great resources in understanding that first you need to know when satellites pass overhead, but you also need to know what are the frequencies that these satellites actually will use. So there's amateur radio satellites. What can you hear on amateur radio satellites? Well, typically anything from beeps and tones that are useless but just cool to listen to, up to communications. I like, for example, AO85, I believe, is one of the great satellites that actually has single sideband voice modes, so you can actually tune in to amateur radio contacts through the satellite, which is one of the coolest things around. I'm just going to check my app here. Well, we've got full cat here, really a lot of it. I'm just going to put my camera back up. There we go. And so there's a lot of interesting things that you can listen to amateur satellites. There's voice, there's Morse code, CW, there are some digital modes. Okay, AO85 is FM, it's AO, oh man, I listen to it regularly, but I, for some reason, trying to remember AO70 something. AO73, I believe. Amateur Oscar 73, I believe, is the one. And let me just check that out here. So I think it's AO73 that has a repeater with downlinks in single sideband. So AO85 is FM. FM ones are cool because they are, you can listen to them with pretty much any basic scanner, since they all have FM mode on it. So there's all sorts of information, all sorts of things. There are some experimental satellites that sometimes just have like recorded messages that are repeated, all sorts of things like that. Also, Bullfrog 89 is talking about a piece of software called Weather to Image, WX to IMG, which is a software to decode the NOAA weather satellite maps. So that's also something that's kind of cool, because when you hear these satellites pass overhead, they will you know, have, of course, that signal that you can decode the audio, a little bit like a weather fax on when you're on shortwave, but it's these lower weather satellites from the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, and they're kind of cool. They are cool to do that, and I need to do a few things like that and show you guys on the channel, to post a few videos. I know some of you have some of these videos posted, so don't be shy. You can, if you guys want to share your YouTube channel, radio-related YouTube channel, please do so. I'm really happy to provide and help that. So amateur satellites are kind of fun. There's a lot of stuff to listen to, from voice to digital to you know, there's beacons. Some of them just have beacons. The beacons are interesting because they might not sound cool. You know, often beacons are in Morse code, but they will have, one of the interesting aspects of beacons is very often they have not just the call sign of the satellite in Morse code, they'll have information. And if you find the web page of the university or the group that made the satellite, that constructed that satellite, often you'll have details of what it's sending out in the beacon. So sometimes it's going to send out you know, internal temperature, battery voltage, or, you know, solar panel voltage, all sorts of, you know, little numbers that will give information about its health, and you know, it's kind of a little report from the satellite itself, kind of telling the world, hey, I'm okay, and this is how I am right now. C. Johnson, no, the X100 here does not cover. This is a full general coverage, medium wave, shortwave radio only. From it starts at 520 kilohertz, goes all the way up to 30 megahertz, and it is my first shortwave radio that I've had. So, you know, what I have here that would have UHF on it, VHF UHF, is the Pro 2006 up here. This would be the first one. So you know, there's an excitement in receiving satellites. There's something about receiving satellites that's just cool. You know, the fact that you know that you're receiving from a signal from a little something that, you know, a little box that's just orbiting Earth. So you're hearing from space. You're hearing a signal from space. It's kind of cool. And so there's also other things that you can listen to. There's, of course, the weather satellites that we just talked about. Those in the 137, 136, 137 megahertz frequency range. Those are in FM mode. You can use, like we were mentioning, WX to IMG or weather to image software. You have a few of these that are active right now. I'm just gonna check out if you want to have the weather satellite status report, NOAA weather satellite status report. I believe there's a, here you go, weather satellite status report. This page keeps track of all the satellites, the NOAA weather satellites with their status. So it tells you which ones are active. Like right now it's going to tell you NOAA 15, NOAA 18, NOAA 19 are on and good. And it tells you the frequency, you can hear them. So you can of course check out, and it'll let you know. If you're listening right now and you're hearing the or the little beeps, it's something that comes from my my computer. Just hang on guys for a second, because I got a iPet DX the cat, so I have a runny nose now. It won't be very long guys, sorry about that. I'll just go and so here we are. Sorry about that. Little runny nose here. Okay, we're back. So if you hear that little ping sound that I have, it's basically a software that I've got installed on my PC, which is Orbitron, and I'm going to show you guys what it looks like. Here it goes. This is Orbitron. This is a software for PC that tracks satellites, and it looks like this. So here you see on that all the satellites that I wish to track are in here, and it is a very, very, very cool piece of software. Works on every version of Windows, even though it hasn't been updated in a little while, even Windows 10. Oh, the only thing that you need to know is that if you use it on Windows 10 and 8 or 10, you will need to right-click the executable file for Orbitron, and you will need to give it administrative privileges in order for it to be able to write down the satellites when it updates, because if you don't, it can't write the updates. So here we go. This is where you can get Orbitron and download it. It's for Windows only, I believe, so unfortunately it's not possible to use this on another system. But there are other tracking software. I don't know if some of you guys might be using some for Mac or Linux that you want to share with others, for sure. Carl Tench, nice to have you here. And says, really want to know how to look at what the satellites are sending. Also, I've seen videos of people sending messages to the ISS. Can anytime like that be done on my GP5 SSB? Okay, no, because these are shortwave receivers, and satellites are typically, now that said, there have been in the past, and I believe there's one satellite in the 20-meter band that sends an ID. There are some satellites in the past that were using 10-meter band for downlink. So it's not impossible that in the future some satellites might be using the shortwave frequency ranges, but most 99% of everything you'll hear on the VHF, UHF range, typically. So your GP5 SSB will not be of a good use for satellites in general. You need a basic scanner or a little RTL dongle, like we were saying, a little earlier, they're cheap, and once you set them up, you can actually do that. So you got weather satellites. You've got other types of satellites that you don't really have much decoding that you can do like the orbcoms. Orbcoms are a series of satellites for communications that are in the 137 megahertz range. They're easy to hear. The only thing is they just send out a batch of data. So what you hear is the data being sent out. You can't really decode much. There's a thing called Orbcom Plotter that is a software that you can actually at least ID which Orbcom satellite is there. And there's tons of Orbcoms. There's almost always a couple of Orbcoms over your area at almost any given time. Often what I do is I just go on the 137 to 138 and start tuning around and see if I can hear an Orbcom. So basically I'm trying one now, and if we have one I'll hear it for sure. Oh, by the way, by accident, around 137.620, what you hear here is one of the weather satellites. The NOAA weather satellites sound like this. So this is a NOAA 15 satellite right now that is transmitting. So the NOAA satellites, you just keep your radio in FM mode. The only thing about the NOAA satellites, I'm not sure at the how you might need a little wider of a filter to really receive it well, because narrow band filters might actually miss out. You have to set your width to a much wider width. So like Icholikov says, 25 kilohertz width for NOAA. So you might need to basically have wider. Here I'm at 12.5 kilohertz, so this would not be suitable for decode right now. And so that's something you need to know. But this is one of those signals that you can decode with weather to image, WX to IMG. And of course 137.620 nominal frequency. But there's something about it that you'll need to know. 137.620, but notice that I'm tuning in lower, and that's because one of the things you'll need to understand when you receive a satellite is that they have something called Doppler shift, because they're moving really, really fast. And so Doppler shift is makes the frequency shift as the satellite is moving. Typically, for example, that NOAA weather satellite is on 137.620, but when it arrives towards you, it'll typically be a few kilohertz higher, like 137.625, 626. As it's moving and passing overhead, the frequency lowers, the Doppler moves in. It's the same phenomenon when you listen to an ambulance. and you notice that the sound of the ambulance as it's moving towards you and going away from you is not the same. It's exactly the same phenomena. It's just that on satellites, the satellite's moving so fast that it compresses or extends the radio wave enough that it actually shifts its frequency. So typically you'll start off 4 or 5 kilohertz higher, even a little more sometimes, and you'll end up at the end of the pass with 4 or 5 kilohertz below. So you need to understand that there's an adjustment that needs to be done. Now on some fancy radios with software, and I did this many times on my VHF channel, I actually have many videos showing this. I can actually control this radio with the PC. And I was using what's the name of that software? I forgot about it. Anyways, with Ham Radio Deluxe. With Ham Radio Deluxe, you can actually, and not just with Ham Radio Deluxe, by the way, even Arbitron, by the way, can control your receiver if you set it right. So basically what it does is that the computer knows the shift, knows what's the Doppler shift at any given time, so it can actually control automatically your receiver and have the right frequency always tuned, which is absolutely fantastic to watch, by the way. So if you go on my VHF UHF channel, you'll see I have many videos that I've posted of reception where you'll see that the frequency is shifting by itself, and it's all automated, it's computer controlled. So the satellite, the shifting is, you know, the software that actually that I use to track satellites also is tracking the Doppler and shifting my radio's frequency to always be on the frequency that I need to be. And by the way, like some say in the chat room, and it is true, because NOAA weather satellites require specific width, if you have a regular cheap or basic scanner, or even a regular scanner of any kind, often the bandwidths are not available for you. For example, 25 kilohertz, unless you got a very fancy receiver, very often it's not available. So a cheap $10, $20 dongle is fun for one thing, is that you can actually go into software and use the bandwidth that you want. So it's a very cheap way to get into decoding weather images from the NOAA weather satellites, for example. So, but that was a satellite. That was a NOAA 15 weather satellite that was just passing overhead, by the way. Okay. Let me just check it out here. Okay. What else do we have here? Just moving slowly. Sorry, guys. I'm catching up with the... sounds like a washing machine, Patrick Manny says. Yeah, kind of. So, hey there, MDK2. Nice to have you here. Mad Radio... Danny, or Shortwave Radio DX. Hello there. Says I've only received NOAA only once, but that's because I should give more patience to receive it more often. Yeah, it's a hobby that you need patience, and it's a kind of a trial and error type hobby also, receiving or not these satellites. So it's interesting for that, but it's kind of cool. So yes, it is kind of cool also, absolutely. It must be absolutely fantastic to see it on the spectrum display move around. Just amazing. So really nice. But MDK2 says one of these days we'll get the appropriate antenna for receiving VHF, UHF. But for the time being, focus on HF. Can't wait though. Looks a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It's something that you the first time, I always like to tell this story. The first time I've ever received a weather satellite personally, first time, is that was with my Pro 43 scanner, which I have right there, with a rubber duck antenna. And you know, I'm the kind of guy that is very curious, so I always tune around all the time. I mean, on a scanner, I rarely would be listening to, you know, the police or you know, some other amateur repeaters or stuff. I'm more of a let's scan all the time to always get the you know, find out new signals. And the first time I've heard a signal, it was a NOAA weather satellite. I was scanning through 137 megahertz. I didn't know that that was a satellite frequency range, and I didn't at all know that, wow, with just my little portable scanner I can receive satellites. You know, it's the kind of thing that people tell you, well, you can't receive without a big dish. No, you can't receive without a big dish. You don't need a big dish for a lot of these satellites. Just a little antenna will do the job. And I heard the ping ping sound that you just heard there. And I remember being intrigued at what it was, I'm wondering what could that be. And I noticed that it was varying in strength all the time, and I was like, huh, this is kind of interesting. And then after, you know, 10 minutes, it disappeared. Because, you know, you hear it while it's overhead, and a typical pass will be 10, depending on the height of the pass and everything, anywhere from, you know, 5-6 minutes up to about 15 minutes at the most for some of these satellites, depending on their orbit, how high they are. So, you know, if they are a little higher, they typically cover a little more, so they usually will have a longer pass. And I remember hearing that and being intrigued, and because I had heard it, I was always constantly going back on the 137 and tuning around. And about an hour and a half later, because that's typically the time they go overhead and then pass over, sometimes they have 2 or 3 passes that you can hear in a day. And I remember 90 minutes later, about an hour and a half later, I was tuning the range again, and it was there. And I was like, hey, it's there again. And I was very, very intrigued. And that's when it's just funny, because we're at the beginning of the 90s, and I remember buying a copy of Monitoring Times, because, you know, I don't have access to the internet in 1990. And you know, sometimes things are, you know, the stars are placed just to, you know, everything's all right and everything's set up. The Monitoring Times of that month, there was an article about the fun of listening to weather satellites on your scanner. And I was like, oh, okay. Started looking at the article. There was a frequency list, and that's where I saw that's the frequency range I was tuning in. I was listening to a satellite, really, and it got me hooked to that aspect of the hobby, because I mean, there's a lot of things you can do with your scanner radios. But listening to satellites is an interesting aspect. It's a very specific aspect. So back then, I had only my Pro 43 portable. It had limited, of course, you know, no single sideband or anything. So I could hear some satellites. And because I kind of understood the characteristics of, okay, every 90 minutes, you might hear it again after 90 minutes. Maybe not. It depends on how the pass is going overhead. And knowing that, you know, the signal lasts anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes, I, by tuning around, found other signals. Another range that I tune from time to time will be the 150 megahertz range. Anywhere from 149.900 to 150.100 is a range where you might hear, and I haven't heard one in a long time, but you all hear Russian navigation satellites. So what they are, basically, they're kind of an old GPS system for submarines from the Russian army. And the Russian navigation satellites, it sounds like radio teletype. Anybody who's listened to radio teletype in the HF bands sounds like radio teletype, but it's not. You can't decode it. It's a telemetry type signal, and it's kind of an old GPS signal, an old GPS style satellite fleet, and there's a lot of them. They're called the Cosmos, COSMOS. So there's a whole fleet of Cosmos satellites that are orbiting Earth. Some of them are, broadcasting around 150 megahertz. So if you hear something that sounds like a radio teletype of sorts, that's what you're listening to. That's what you're listening to. Okay. So, you get hooked to listening to satellites at some point. Ethan Best, hello there. Nice to have you here. What else do we have? Asholikov says, I received NOAA with an HF antenna just fine. So, that just shows you that it's pretty surprising sometimes. So what else do we have here? Bullfrog89 says he's fallen in love with decoding weather satellites recently. It is absolutely cool to do so. And it's very, very, very a lot of fun. So no, it's 137 dot something. So basically the NOAA weather satellites will be the ones that are active right now, for example, is if we look at the satellite status report that I just had. So there's the NOAA 15 on 137.620. There's also, just checking it out again, other satellite status report. So the active ones right now are NOAA 15 on 137.620. NOAA 18 is on 137.9125, and NOAA 19 is on 137.100. These are the three American NOAA satellites that are active right now that are very easy to hear, by the way. So you can check that out. And there's tons of satellite signals of all sorts in the 136 to 138 megahertz range. Tuned there regularly, you'll hear all sorts of signals. Also, one of the things that some people like to do is there's like a satellite graveyard out there. There's tons of satellites in orbit that have stopped working at some point, and sometimes for some reason they come back to life and then nobody knows why. They just come back to life suddenly. And so some aspect of the satellite listening hobby is to also try and do some detective work, if you want, and trying to know, what are these satellites that I'm listening to? What's that? What could it be? An example is a Tyros satellite on 136 dot I don't remember, something like 136.800 or something like that, and it came back to life and started transmitting again. So it's sometimes it transmits weird sounds because it's broken, but it is very, very interesting for listening. It's like you can do some detective work, try to find what old satellite could have been reactivated. For sure. As for specific satellites, I saw somebody ask a little earlier about any types of satellites, like spy satellites for the US and stuff like that. The majority of these satellites, the majority of low Earth satellites that are from these agencies, are either spread spectrum, which makes them impossible to monitor. If they are not, they are usually with digital signals that are almost impossible to monitor also. And also you got to remember that a lot of them use frequency ranges that are just out of the range of any radios that you use. A lot of them are in the gigahertz, high gigahertz frequency ranges. So a lot of them you just forget it. You can't really do anything. One aspect that is interesting: the International Space Station. The International Space Station has several signals that you might be hearing, and it's worth checking out what they're doing, because from time to time they do experiments. A few months back they were sending out slow scan television pictures. So like Luis Arevalo says, do any satellites send out video? Nope, but you might have some pictures, like slow scan TV pictures from the International Space Station. The International Space Station also has a packet bulletin board on system. So when the ISS passes overhead, typically you'll hear the bursts of the packet BBS around 145.800. When they talk on voice with, sometimes they do contacts with schools for kind of with their amateur radio station. 145.825 is usually the frequency they use. And when they do slow scan TV picture sending, they also use 145.825. Of course, there are other frequencies. The International Space Station, you can actually hear the communications with ground when they pass overhead. If they ever talk about something, if they do a communication with the ground, you'll hear them. They have several frequencies that are also working out. Hey Fastlow, nice to have you here. So these are interesting things that you can listen to. Richard Tribble, hello there. Nice to have you on board. Nope, not going to the Amfest in Droneville tomorrow. I have Fastload is going, but I can't, because I have a lot of things to do tomorrow that I can't. I just can't. The one I want to attend is the one in Longueuil, which is coming up I believe in October or something. That one I want to go to. And so Fastload, you're going to the Drummondville Amphis tomorrow. Cool. There's a lot of nice finds there for sure. So are you going, Richard? Will you be going to the Amfest? What frequency is SSTV on, and what do you need to pick it up? That's a good question. Dan 805. So the slow scan TV from the International Space Station, it's not always there. That's very important to understand. They do that from time to time, so you gotta keep up with the information of when they do special events like that. Typically when they do slow scan TV, they'll do it for a couple of days. So they'll start the slow scan TV process, and they let it go on for like a day or two, or sometimes more. Frequency is 145.825. That's the frequency. Remember, there's Doppler shift. That means 145.830 up to 145.820 in that 10 kilohertz, just 5 above and 5 below. Very important to know. And what you need to pick up slow scan TV, if you got a PC, you can install MMSSTV. It really works well for decoding. So MMSSTV, I'll just post a link to this. So by Amsoft, it's free and it works great to decode slow scan television pictures. And what's cool with the International Space Station, it's particularly strong signal. So even if you don't have a lot of of equipment and you don't have a lot of antenna, you will typically receive it quite easily. At the worst, what you could do is, if you can't, the best will be to, well, just go outside with your portable receiver, for example, and record the audio. which is the best thing that you can do. After you recorded the audio, then you can actually play it back on your PC and decode it easily. Or you can do it, I do it live because I listen to them via here, and I've decoded on the VHF UHF channel, by the way. I've got several videos of slow scan TV pictures that I've received from the International Space Station. It's quite strong in general. So that's pretty much what you need, and it works really well. What else do we have? Hey TOT, nice to have you here, and the wife fishing in Trenton, watching your live feed. Nice to see you, Tio, as usual. So it's pretty cool. So Alexander Hagen, nice to have you here. The question is, I'm trying to find the FM uplink for Birmingham Airport, UK. You know, one of the great resource for finding frequencies is the radio reference website. It's a great for scanner listeners. Radio reference is pretty good in common frequencies that you can listen to, or that you can find out. It's one of the great websites for that, radioreference.com. Hey David in Barcelona, nice to have you here. Says picked up Lilac Sat 2 this afternoon. The team in China who developed it said it was in voice mode to celebrate its second year in orbit, but was back in telemetry mode when I heard it. Oh, that's sad. Voice mode. Voice is always exciting on satellites. Always exciting on satellites, I can tell you that. So, but the airfest I want to go to is the one in Longueuil. I think it's in October, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, that is true. I forgot to talk about it, but HARP in Alaska is transmitting. Are they on right now? Ichalikov 9500 kilohertz, continuous wave. Just out of curiosity, we'll go here for a second. Don't hear anything right now. Don't hear anything right now, but I know that HARP is broadcasting from the 21st to 25, something like that. Richard says Amfest Longueuil is on October 21st. I have visitors coming in here, so I may not go. Oh, you might not go to the Drummondville one finally. Well, why not make a trip to Longueuil one, Richard, and we'll meet there. I think that could be a fun thing on October 21st. How about it? Let's, if and anybody else not too far. So maybe we can meet at the Longueuil one. I think that could be a lot of fun, for sure. So, okay. Okay, I'm not hearing anything here at Cholikov. So 9500 kilohertz for the HARP transmitter in Alaska. Jerry's receiving Zarya 130.166 Watt FM from ISS. That's the Zarya is one of the International Space Station modules. One of the modules that's there. So basically, there's tons of frequencies you can listen to that. So there's a lot of stuff. For those that, okay, I talked about Orbitron for PC. We talked about some websites that you can go to. If you've got an Android phone, by the way, one of the great resource for satellites is Heavens Above. Heavens Above is a free app that lets you, for example, track the International Space Station if you wish to. For example, like this, tells me the International Space Station passes. But also you've got something called radio satellites on the bottom. So you choose radio satellites, and it gives you a list of all the satellites that are passing by. When you click on one, it will show you a map of where it's going to pass in the sky. One of the important things to know when you track a satellite is knowing how high the elevation is going to be, because it has a very, very important side to it. The lower in the sky a satellite has a pass, the harder it is to receive, because it's much farther from you. So typically you want to have higher passes, the highest passes possible when you listen to a satellite. So that's very, very interesting, and you have the strongest signal. So here you'll have typical information, and for example, in this one, it tells me that at 1811 local time, 6:11 p.m., it was rising in the north-northeast. Then it tells you that at the max elevation at 6:18 14 seconds, it's 39 degrees elevation. And a little trick, guys, if you want to know what's the elevation approximately, when you put your fist at arm's length, okay, arm's length, you make a fist, the size of your fist in the sky is 10 degrees. Okay, that's a little trick that's fun, because you got to remember that 0 degrees is the horizon. So if you want to know, for example, this is 39 degrees, it's almost 40 degrees, you put your fist at the horizon, the bottom of the horizon. You know, here you're at 10, and then you put another fist, then you're at 20, another fist, then you're at 30, another fist, then you're at 40. So it's approximately that height that you'll see it. It's a very easy trick, and it's really cool because it will let you know approximately how high in the sky. And of course the highest point in the sky is 90 degrees. It's right above your head. That's 90 degrees. And of course the horizon is 0 degrees. So that's something you need to know. If you want to also understand a little bit, it's kind of interesting to understand also what direction. Most apps will give you the north, northeast, northeast, east, south, southeast, south. That means it's moving, for example, here from the north, northeast, and it will be going towards the east, and then the southeast, and then the south. So it gives you a general idea of where it's going to pass in the sky. These are information that sometimes are very, very very cool to know, because, you know, especially if you want to try to use the orientation of, you know, an antenna, knowing where it is in the sky is a pretty darn good thing. So Heavens Above for Android is great. On the iPhone side, and I would have to find my iPhone, I do have an app, but I believe anybody using an app for tracking satellites on their iPhones? I'm trying to remember here. Do I have my iPhone close by? Yeah, it's here. Is it working? Yes, it is. So let me just check that out here too. So what did I use here? Close. Trying to cancel. Okay, what was I using here? I'm trying to find if I have any apps for satellites. I'm not sure I still have them because I haven't used this iPhone in ages. Nope, don't seem to have any apps there, unfortunately. But I don't know if anybody has an app that they use on the iPhone for tracking satellites, but there are probably tons of apps. Let me just check the store. Maybe I'll just check out the App Store, and we'll try to find satellite Satellite trackers. Satellite finder. Just gonna check it out here. I've used one, but I'm trying to remember which one it was on iPhone or on iOS. So satellite tracking. Okay, satellite tracker. Doesn't seem to give me anything for some reason. I don't know why. But anyways, but a lot of them are you know, paid apps. On the iPhone, that's one side that's a little less interesting. It often apps are there's a lot of apps that are paid apps, and a lot of them are free on the Android side. Evans Above, I believe, doesn't exist for iOS, and it's sad because it's really one that is amazing. For sure. David Arden says, that's a really cool trick, thanks for sharing. Yeah, that's a trick that I learned because I love astronomy, and when I was looking at stars in the sky and stuff like that, I had read, I think it's in Sky and Telescope, that I had read an article where they were saying how to find out, you know, the amount of degrees. So your fist at arm's length is about 10 degrees in the sky. So by doing that, you know, you can, if somebody tells you, well, you know, it's, you get used to it. When somebody tells you 45 degrees, you know it's about halfway between, you know, horizon and up there, but that's a cool way of knowing. And of course it works on the other side too. So if you know that the moon will be 10 degrees east, or, you know, there's going to be a star 10 degrees east or west, you know, to the right or to the left of the moon, you can use the same. You just put your fist on the other, you know, instead of putting it like this, you put it horizontal, and you can, you know, find, okay, 10 degrees is right here. That's where the star could be next to the moon. So these are little tricks that are really cool. The best is you just search for it, David Arden. You go to your app store, you know, on the iPhone or the Android, and you just type satellite tracking, and there's the whole list of apps will show up of satellite tracking. David in Barcelona says that I have MSAT Droid free on my Android smartphone. Works quite well. So I don't know if I have that one. MSAT. Let me just check it out here. MSAT. Yeah, MSAT Droid free. Yeah. There's one. So I'm going to install it. Okay. So it goes. It looks like a nice app. This one is more probably for amateur satellites, I would guess. So you know, it's all part of knowing where and when. Oh yeah, I use this one. I remember. So you choose your satellite on the list on the left side here, and it's going to give you the next pass, or in the next, if you want, for this next 6 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours, all the pass that are going to have. That's pretty good. So oh, thanks David Walker. I was waiting for that because I was pretty sure we'd have a new build today, and it's going to be crazy in the next few days. I wouldn't be surprised we'll have a build tomorrow or even Monday. Donna Sarkar said that we better check it out because we're gonna have a lot of things happening this weekend. So thanks for letting me know, David. I'll be able to make a video and start and fire up my Insider machine. Thanks for the info. Hey, we're an hour and a half into the show. You're watching the which usually is the Shortwave show, but today we have a special satellite tracking VHF UHF show. So tuning around, we'll talking about how to track satellites, what you need. Hope everybody is enjoying the show and the information that we gather here. Satellite listening is a great hobby because, I mean, it is an aspect of the hobby that's kind of cool, And it is, you know, once you hear your first satellite, you'll get hooked. And how crazy can you be? Well, you know, there are satellites that I listen to, and I simply can't, you know, it's just going to be typically sorry, I was distracted here. So, you know, it's typically just noise sometimes, just beeps. And you know, I'm crazy enough that I don't care. You know, sometimes people will tell me, well, that is just a bunch of noise. And some people don't understand, you know, what's the fun in listening to noise that you have nothing you can do, you can't decode it. And I'll always say, you know what? I don't care. It's a satellite. It's just cool. I'm receiving transmissions from a satellite in space. So, yes, when you listen to something you can decode, something that you can, you know, voice transmissions are great. You know, all the satellites that have voice transmission, for example, it's just so cool. But honestly, even when it's just beeps and tones, it's so cool. It's a satellite, and you know, I get hooked up at some point. Hey, Buster Brown, nice to have you here and giving us the solar flux 78 K index 2. Not too bad, not too bad. I might be doing some shortwave listening a little bit tonight, or maybe even some and for the info fast load, I've not had any green screen bug check on the on my fall creators update or creators update. I haven't had any green screens, blue screens, anything in a long time on either the regular version of Windows 10 or the insider builds. Just out of information. So David in Barcelona says that fist trick is very nice. I always try to imagine the angle in my head, but it's much more intuitive your way. Yeah, because it's amazingly accurate, actually. I've used this a lot because it gives you a more precise sense of where to look in the sky, and it is very very accurate. It's amazingly accurate. You know, of course, there's probably a little difference here because, I mean, you know, some of us have bigger fists than others, but in general it works for pretty much everybody, and it is a great little trick for sure. Bullfrog 89 says absolutely true, I've fallen in love with satellites. Absolutely, it's something that is just crazy. Once you hear your first one, you get hooked. You get totally hooked. So you know, I remember listening to the International Space Station, making contacts with a school in the state of New York. So because it was passing, you know, in the northern part of the United States at the time, it was visible here too. And I remember listening to the astronaut answering the questions that some of the school students were actually asking through amateur radio. It was just so cool. I'll always remember that. That was so cool. David says this summer managed to listen to an Italian astronaut, Paolo Nespoli, on the ISS. As I was visually seeing the station moving across the sky. It doesn't get cooler than that. You know what? I've had that happen several times. Being able to hear the International Space Station and see the little bright dot going across the sky. For those that have never seen the International Space Station, it's an amazing sight. It's easy to view even in a big city. It's very bright. So at night, it's a very, very nice thing to check out. Hey, KC Red Dragon, nice to have you here. Well, you just missed about an hour and 34 minutes of show. We're talking about satellites today. Ichilakov says, okay, for the cheap Chinese Baofeng radios. Not satellites, but local supermarket just popped up using 145 megahertz illegally. Wow, that is really, really crazy. You know, there's so many people, and especially with the what you can buy on the internet now. Tons of people are popping up everywhere on the amateur bands with, you know, these things that they see. Oh, these look at these walkie-talkies. Yeah, no, they're 2 meter or, you know, 70 centimeter amateur radio grade devices. They're meant to be used by amateur radio operators, and they're meant to be used by people that are licensed. And it's just crazy. It's just crazy. So yeah, the ISS does school contact quite regularly. Absolutely, you just need to have it when it's there. What's on 4623 upper sideband? 4623. All I'm hearing is the chirp, chirp, chirp about every second of the radar for the that checks the height of waves in the ocean. That's all I'm hearing here, Jerry. So yeah, they fixed it. They fixed it the next day, Jerry. The gas leak. It's you know, here it's crazy. It happens all the time. I don't know what. It's like the people that work at the public works here are just idiots. I don't know. Beltstacka599, hello there. Says, I'm watching live broadcast for the first time. I heard the radio from the world, from Japan. But shortwave is good. Is good after all. Thank you. Well, cool. Really cool. Yeah, Kodar. The chirp chirp that you hear every second is that's Kodar. It's a radar for checking the ocean waves. And they're scattered all across the east coast and the west coast of North America. Actually, if you tune around below and above, it takes a big chunk of spectrum, and you hear the chirp every second going by. So these are Kodar. I haven't heard the buzzer, by the way. MDK2 talking about the buzzer on 4625 kilohertz. I've been trying the buzzer for the past 2 or 3 weeks. I haven't heard the buzzer yet. And by the way, you know, we're September 22nd today. We're getting into that. We're going to talk about it a little more tomorrow. You know, we're getting into the fall in northern hemisphere, spring in the southern hemisphere. So we're in always find one of the best times for shortwave radio listening, by the way. So welcome back, Dan805. Once again, just for those that want to help out, you know, the donations have been really helpful for me. Very helpful for me in keeping and maintaining my live shows and everything. I want to thank all for those that have donated. It is much appreciated and very important. So paypal.me/shortwave is a great way you can give me a little something. Patreon.com/radio and computers, but that one's a little tricky, I gotta say. And we have 12 patrons right now that have set it up right. Give me a little something every month, but you got to be careful the way you set it up there. And you know, I kind of sometimes think that PayPal might be the best way to give me a little something. So if you want to help out in any way, please Donations are very, very important, and they have literally helped me continue doing these shows for the past year. Because of the crappy AdSense, I probably would not have been able to, you know, have and increase my output of shows like I did here. Like, you know, we now have a shortwave show every week. It would not have been possible without your help. So I want to thank you very much, everybody, for that. And you know, I'm kind of trying to reach out here to maybe somebody that's been watching the shows that I do for a while and have never donated. Why not? You know, if you enjoy what you're watching, what you're looking at, why not help me out? I think it's a great cause. And in a few weeks from now, by the way, I'll have a little something. Well, two things I want to talk about as we're taking a little break here. In a few weeks, I'll have a PayPal donation run that I will also associate with other shortwave related or radio related people or websites or organizations that I think are worth it. So in a couple of weeks, I'll have every donation that I get will you know, like 30% will go to say, you know, Glenn Hauser's World of Radio and so on, so that we can share a little bit of that money with other people that also have been for such a long time in the hobby and helping us out. And I think that's going to be fun. Also, this coming week, I will be posting a video, and we will have a Skype handle, specific Skype handle for the shortwave channel. That means if you use Skype, if you have Skype, you'll be able, and you'll need to be approved, and I'll need to know who you are, because I don't want to have idiots on my PayPal. But once you're approved and in there, we will have shows starting in October. On the Friday shows, we will have, yep, CIDX Club is another example, Richard. So we will have a some Skype calls. People that want to join in via Skype, we will have that available starting with some October shows. So anybody that wants to say hi, you'll be able to say hi. We'll see your face. We'll know who you are a little more, and you know, maybe interview some of you, ask a little more about your hobby, how you came into the hobby, and stuff like that. I think it's going to add a new dimension to the shows. Also, that's going to be fun, and that Longueuil Amfest, I'm going to bring a camera with me, so I'm going to be doing a few videos and showing you guys a little bit of what the Hamfest is all about. So I think that's going to be a fun thing also later in October. So all of that is coming up. I think it's going to be really, really cool, and it's going to be absolutely fantastic for you know, and having a little more people and learning who you are. Philip Briggs is receiving Satcom Pirates in Northeast Brazil on 253.750 now. Let me just try it out here. That's in what mode are you using on 253.750? Is it FM, AM, FM? What are the modes of these satellites? 253.750. 253.75. Hey guys, I'm hearing. It's very weak, but I just heard something. I just heard something, Philip. When I'm in sideband, I can distinctly. I can hear there's somebody talking, but it's too weak to actually break through when I put it in FM mode. 253.70. I need to play around with the antenna, Philip, because I do hear very weak signal on 253.750 now. So this is amazing. It's the first time I hear a Satcom. but it's too weak. It's too weak to break through. I need to play around with my antennas. 255550. Check that out. Yeah, that one also, I know there's something there. I can definitely hear there's a weak little something there on 255550 also. But it's too weak to be received correctly. I'm going to try it here, just by curiosity. I don't know if I can hear it with that. So that's 255.550. I'm going to change mode to FM. And I don't hear anything, but man. Daniel 05 says, just noticed Christmas in a few months. Hopefully the jolly fat man has a few ICOM ICR 8600. Yeah, I'd like to have that. I'd like to have that, absolutely. Can tell you that. An ICR 8600. I was so happy to see it in person at the CIDX barbecue. I was still amazed at how small it is. The ICOM ICR 8600. I was very surprised at how small it is. But man, what a nice radio! I can tell you that. If I'd have the cash, I'd buy one. I really find it an amazing piece of equipment. And if I'd have the cash, I'd buy one. That's for sure. So beer number 2. I'm going a little slow on the beer today because I did kind of drink a little bit last night. So I'm gonna play with that tonight, Philip Briggs. Now you got me hooked because I can hear him faintly. I'm gonna play around with the antennas outside a little bit, and I need to get these. They seem to be strong enough that there's a possibility I can hear them. And for those that wonder what these are military satellites from the U.S. government. But what's happening is that it's mostly Brazilian. From what I know, it's almost only Brazilian stations that are on these. Has anybody heard other contacts? So I would guess a lot of them are in Portuguese, probably. But I don't know if there's others. But it's like some people have started, like playing around with these satellites and making contacts. So it's probably not totally legals, but man, cool. Because I distinctly can, in upper sideband, I hear the sound that an FM signal, a weak FM signal, breaking through. So Bobby says can hear something on 255550. I wouldn't be surprised, Bobby, because I gotta say it's I think it's strong enough that it might be possible to actually receive it without too much effort if you're set up just okay. And I would guess it's probably a lot of Portuguese language stuff happening there. So you're watching the live show from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. My name is Gilles, and we are, of course, Rotaville. Nice to have you here on the IRC chat room. Hola. Nice to have you here. And SG1 East Nebraska is sharing the Solar Flux 78, A index 5, K index 2. So nice to have everybody on board. Casey Red Dragon, why are you not on the computer? You mean on the screen and the TV screen in my living room, like I am usually? That's because since I wanted to listen to satellites and try to tune in, the only receiver that works well, that has the frequency ranges required, is my ICOM. So that's why today it's not on the. Today I'm not on the in the living room with my 50-inch TV, KC Red Dragon. So that's the thing. Philip Briggs says they are from the Amazon, northeast of Brazil, and vast remote areas make control of pirates very difficult. Yeah, I would guess so, eh? I don't think there's a lot of Americans or Canadians that would take the chance to do that, probably. It is kind of funny when you think about it. So let's check out here. Any satellites worth it to tune in are around. Let's see here. And we'll check out if they are. Which ones are... Okay, we're at 18. We're at 6:50 p.m. So what is there here? Cute 1. There's one called Cute 1 here. 437.470. So let's check that to see. Let's check here to see. So let's, I'm going to go here and check out on my Mac, my good old white MacBook. Cute 1. Okay, CO55. And it says that, if we look at this here, the beacon, so the beacon of Cute 1 is 436.8375. So we're going to try both frequencies. There's a downlink and there's a... So here I look at the Japanese list and I see that Cute 1 is one of those that's working right now. And so we're going to try to get this one. Let's see if we'll hear the Cute 1 coming in. So Cute 1, just CO55. So, you know, you gotta play around with these lists, check out the satellites. So CO55, that's also something that's very, very difficult, by the way. One of the things that I hate about amateur satellites is the different names that they have. So, for example, the app here says Cute 1. But here, you know that Cute 1 is also known as CO55. And sometimes it's difficult to make the link between what the name and the satellite is because of that, because not all lists have the same name, which is kind of sad. So sometimes it's a little difficult to find out. So this one is coming up, and we're going to try to listen to this. So let's check out the beacon of Cute 1. So Cute 1 should have a beacon on 436.8375. 436.8375. A beacon is usually in Morse code, so in CW mode. So we're going to see if we can hear anything. Well, I can hear a tone. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but there's a tone and it's Doppler shifting. So the fact that I hear a Doppler shift, so if you guys, I don't know if you guys can hear the tone, but it's definitely shifting in sound. You see it shifting down. So that's a satellite because you have the Doppler shift on the signal. The only thing is that it's not, the beacon seems to be broken, it's just a tone. So I am listening right now to CO55. Bobby Burgess says getting Cute 1. It's kind of interesting. So, you know, not a lot of information here, no Morse code ID or anything, but receiving the continuous tone from the satellite. So now I'm on 436.840.8 upper sideband. I can put myself in CW. And it's kind of cool to hear the Doppler shift. The tone is changing because the frequency is shifting. So that's the Doppler shift from the satellite. So by the way, fast load, if you're still there, that's being received with your discount. It's your discount that's plugged in right now. Also wanted to say, for those that wonder for the discount, I will be posting a couple of videos on how I set it up. I used a PVC pipe to put the discount, and I'm gonna try to find this weekend a way to put it even higher, because it's not high enough. It barely goes above rooftop for me. This is cool. So Cute 1 being received right now, which is one of the amateur satellites. Now, of course, that's not the most exciting of the satellites. It's just a tone. But, like, you know, Amateur Oscar 73 is cool because there's voice. So I'm just looking here at what's coming up. Unfortunately, AO 73 is going to pass only around 8 p.m. here. It'd be really cool if it, you know, would pass while we do a show, because it's just amazing. You know, you can listen to amateur radio contacts, and that's just so amazing, I gotta say. So pretty cool. Anybody has questions, anything? We're going to cut it a little short today, a 2-hour show, but we'll be back tomorrow for Shortwave at 2000 hours UT. And I got a few things I want to do, including install that new build of Windows. So if anybody has questions, just let me know. Hope everybody enjoyed today's show, by the way. It's been fun to do. Lots of information. And you know, you got to take it one step at a time, by the way. Just take it one step at a time when you do satellite listening. Tune around. Part of the fun is, you know, if you're not sure what you're listening to, for example, don't hesitate to go on the, you know, Google's your friend. You go on Google and you just type, you know, the frequency you heard something, and end it with satellite, and see if a list somewhere talks about it. There's also some interesting stuff. One of the, let me just check it out here, Cosmos. Satellite frequencies. Cosmos satellite frequencies. There's one that is, I'm trying to find that list. It's an old list, but it's still good. Zarya Cosmos satellite frequencies. Let me just check out if I can find that old page that I used to. There's an interesting list here if you want to. There's a listing here of 350 to 700 megahertz downlink frequencies. That could be interesting here. This is something I've never. Here we go. There we go. But there's another listing, one that I've used in the past, that is an old page, but it has the frequencies for the different Cosmos satellites. Zarya.info. That's the one. Here we go. Zarya.info. So Zarya.info has lists and frequencies of those Cosmos satellites in orbit if you want to check it out. So that page also is something to look forward. It has a lot of information on the Russian satellites and their frequencies used, like the Cosmos satellites also, for sure. Many thanks for an interesting show. Take care, Philip. Always nice. And now you've piqued my curiosity on those 250 megahertz satellite communications. So, what are these Flocksats? What do you mean? Where you see the Flock satellite? Oh, these are okay. The CubeSats, the different CubeSats. Okay. These are amateur satellites. There are a bunch of amateur satellites. The little CubeSats, basically. And check out the frequencies. Use your equipment. Like I said, you know, upper-lower sideband is often useful and very cheap. You know, and I got to say, it's really the way. Hey, John McClure, nice to have you here. But the best way is, you know, with cheap dongles like 10. Basically, these dongles are so cheap and they're easy to with a little antenna, you know, listen to pretty much everything that you want. I'll be checking that out for sure. Yeah, thanks, Philip. I will absolutely check that out for sure. I'll be even I'll be checking that out and playing around with my antenna to maybe try to boost the signals a little bit here. I'm thinking of investing in a NMR coax cable to replace the one I'm using here, because I do see there's a lot of loss as I go higher in frequencies. So I might have more signals going into the radio using that type of cabling. So take care, everybody. I want to say thank you for being here, being such great fans. Thanks for those that donated during the show. Tomorrow we have a shortwave show. We'll be talking about DX programs that you can listen to, and also some 450 here, guys. $437, $450. Not hearing anything right now. So I'm not hearing anything right now. And so we'll be talking about, of course, you know, all of these DX shows and also the mailbag shows from different stations. And there's some interesting stuff out there that you can listen that have and that are related to radio hobby. And there's something fun about listening to, you know, a DX show when you're listening to your radio. It's kind of cool. So take care, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. Tomorrow it's 2000 hours UTC. We're back to the regular time slot. Hope you guys enjoy. And you know, as we're talking about DX shows tomorrow, we'll try to tune in some pirates. I've been hearing a pretty good number of pirates in the past few weeks. So we'll see maybe more pirates tomorrow. Who knows? David says hearing he uses AirCell 5 for both his UHF and HF coax runs. Works great. I'll check that out. Yes, I will get some rest. I am extremely tired. So take care, everyone. Thank you all for being here. See you tomorrow, 2000 hours UTC. And stay safe, please. Hope you enjoyed the show. Bye. Take care.